Clayton Moore was the embodiment of the iconic hero, the Lone Ranger. With his trademark mask, white hat, and silver bullets, he captured the hearts and imaginations of millions of fans around the world. But behind the larger-than-life persona was a man with a complex and tragic story. Despite his success and enduring popularity, Moore faced numerous personal and professional challenges throughout his life, including legal battles over his right to wear the Lone Ranger costume, financial difficulties, and a struggle with alcoholism. Jack Carlton Moore was born on September 14, 1914, in the bustling city of Chicago, Illinois. As a young boy, he discovered his passion for performing as a circus acrobat. Eventually, he moved on to modeling and found success with John Robert Powers. In the early 1940s, Hollywood producer Edward Small approached Jack with an offer that would change his life forever. Small convinced Jack to adopt a new stage name, Clayton Moore, and he began his career in B-Westerns and Republic Studio cliffhangers. Clayton went on to star in more such films than serial hero Buster Crabbe, becoming a household name in the process. However, Clayton's success was soon interrupted by World War II. He enlisted in the United States Army Air Forces and served with the 1st Motion Picture Unit, making training films alongside fellow actor Arthur Kennedy. Their most notable collaboration was the film Target Invisible, which showcased Clayton's acting talent. In 1949, Clayton Moore landed his big break in Hollywood. While playing a supporting role in the film Ghost of Zorro, he caught the eye of George W. Trendle, the producer of the popular radio show The Lone Ranger. With Trendle's help, Clayton was cast as the lead in the new television series. However, playing the role of the Lone Ranger was no easy feat. Clayton had to train his voice to sound like the radio version of the character, which had been on the air since 1933. He succeeded in lowering his already distinctive baritone even further, creating the iconic voice that audiences would come to know and love. The Lone Ranger premiered on the American Broadcasting Company network and quickly became a hit. It was the network's highest-rated program and its first true hit. In fact, the show even earned an Emmy nomination in 1950. After 2 successful years playing the lead in the Lone Ranger television series, Clayton Moore had a pay dispute and left the show. He went on to make a few more westerns and serials under the name Clay Moore, sometimes playing the villain. However, the public did not accept John Hart, the actor who replaced Moore as the Lone Ranger, and the owners of the program eventually relented and rehired Moore at his requested salary. This happened in 1957, and Moore and Jay Silverhills, who played Tonto, went on to star in 2 feature-length Lone Ranger movies. Moore also made appearances in other television series, including a role in the 1952 episode Snake River Trapper of the Western show The Adventures of Kit Carson. After completing the 2nd feature-length movie The Lone Ranger and the Lost City of Gold in 1958, Moore began a long career of personal appearances, guest spots on television shows, and classic commercials as the legendary Masked Man. He remained closely connected to his co-star, Jay Silverhills, and the two occasionally appeared together over the years. Moore expressed his respect and love for Silverhills throughout his career. Once a beloved figure as the Lone Ranger, Clayton Moore found himself banned from future appearances as the character in 1979. Jack Rather, the producer who owns the rights to the Lone Ranger character, obtained a court order against Moore from appearing as the character in the future. Rather was in the process of developing a new Lone Ranger film and feared that Moore's continued appearances would hurt the film's profits. Furthermore, he was concerned that people would think Moore, who was already in his mid-60s, would reprise the role in the new picture. Moore, however, was not deterred. He made a slight alteration to his costume by replacing the mask with wraparound sunglasses that looked similar. Audiences were in favor of Moore, causing them to steer away from Rather's film, The Legend of the Lone Ranger. The movie, which was released in 1981, only made 2/3 of its $18 million budget and flopped at the box office. Clayton Moore's legacy as the Lone Ranger continued long after his time on the show ended. In 1979, producer Jack Rather obtained a court order to prevent Moore from making future appearances as the iconic character. Rather feared that Moore's appearance would negatively affect the profits of his upcoming feature-length film, The Legend of the Lone Ranger. Moore responded by altering his costume and replacing the mask with wraparound sunglasses, but audiences were still drawn to him rather than the new film. After the film's disastrous release, Moore sued Rather to regain the right to wear the mask. The lawsuit dragged on for several years until Rather dropped it in September 1984. However, just 2 months later, Rather died of cancer. Moore's love for the Lone Ranger character was evident, and he often spoke about taking the character's creed to heart in his personal life. His public fight to retain the right to wear the mask ultimately elevated him in the public's eye to an American folk icon. He was so identified with the character that his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame reads, Clayton Moore, the Lone Ranger. In addition to this honor, Moore was also inducted into the Stuntman's Hall of Fame in 1982 and the Western Performers Hall of Fame at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma in 1990. Moore's dedication to the character and his public fight to wear the mask cemented his status as a beloved figure in American culture. Clayton Moore, the actor who portrayed the Lone Ranger, was known for his commitment to the character's identity. He always kept the Lone Ranger's face hidden, making him perhaps the only character whose full face is unknown to the public. Throughout the television series, the Lone Ranger never took off his mask, except for the occasional use of a disguise that revealed only the upper half of his face. Despite this dedication to the character's anonymity, there are many photos of Moore without his mask, including several in his autobiography. However, his fans could easily recognize him by his distinctive voice, which was enough to bring the character to life. In 1964, Clayton and his wife and daughter moved to Golden Valley, Minnesota, to be closer to his wife's family in Minneapolis. He decided to get a Minnesota real estate license and established Ranger Realty, working to develop the area north of Interstate 394 near the Louisiana Avenue exit. During his time in Minnesota, Clayton had a chance to become a real-life hero when he stumbled upon the scene of a crime. He found a grocery store manager tied up after a robbery and quickly untied him. As he left, he reportedly said, "You have just been rescued by the Lone Ranger." Clayton Moore passed away on December 28, 1999. He suffered a heart attack at his home in Calabasas, California, and was rushed to a hospital in West Hills. Sadly, he did not survive. Moore was survived by his fourth wife, Clarita Moore, and their adopted daughter, Dawn Angela Moore. Moore was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. Fans of the Lone Ranger paid their respects to the beloved actor, who had brought the character to life for so many years. As the news of his passing spread, fans and colleagues alike mourned the loss of Moore. He had left an indelible mark on the world of entertainment, and his contributions to the industry would never be forgotten. Goodbye, and rest in peace, Lone Ranger Clayton Moore.